Yes.
Terry, you need to come up here. Walter, you need to come up here. Let me, Larry, Mark. So we probably need to have some rules up front. And what I'm trying to promote here today is a dialogue between members of the board, the finance committee, our general manager, and our director of finance. We're in the middle of this budget development process to develop a 2025 budget for execution and a 5-year plan that takes us through the years 25 through 29 and a 10-year projection. So we've been trying to work on a planning horizon for the community of 10 years. I will acknowledge that we failed miserably in January and February and March in our efforts to communicate the benefits of long-term thinking. So we've done a lot of reflection and a lot of thinking over all the things that transpired from the RRAG briefing to the board back in December of 23, to the experience with the option 3 voting process, the option 4 voting process, and we learned some valuable lessons. We're going to discuss all of that here today. This is a discussion. I put together a process to facilitate that discussion because part of the outcome I want here today is members of our corporation, our community, our fellow residents who want to know and understand things about the budget process will have a place to go. I put together, as we go through this process, a series of questions that's designed to get all the smart people in the room talking, and we're going to capture the answers to the questions because we're going to publish them and hang them on the web page for the benefit of our members. But for us, sitting at this table, this is a centering exercise. This is getting us all to look at the problem set through the same lens. And when we leave here today, we should all have a common understanding of the picture of what we're dealing with as we move to the future. So this morning I had the opportunity to visit Residents for Responsible Spending. I had a meeting this morning. And the first time I've had the opportunity to sit in one of those. And I can tell you the subject matter we're going to discuss today is relevant and important to people that are interested in responsible spending. And so I want to say thank you for agreeing to be here today. I want to start by taking the microphone and handing it to Terry. That's my way of saying welcome. And now I'd like everybody to talk into the microphone, because if you look back here, Joey is taping this. This session will be also put on the website so any of our residents who couldn't attend today can look at it. Go ahead, Terry.
Okay. My name is Terry Dempsey, Director of Finance.
Charlie Shawless, Recording Secretary for the Board.
Sean Kreiderman, Communications Champion.
David Wigg, Finance.
Brett Benedict, Advisor of the Finance Committee and prior Board Treasurer.
Ray Adams, member of the Finance Committee.
Jim Cox, Finance Committee.
Bill Einecker, Finance Committee.
Campbell Cheney, Chair, Finance Committee.
Walter Yazzie, General Manager.
Larry Santor, Assistant Treasurer.
Mark Eckert, Treasurer. Chuck Hill, Director and prior member of the Finance Committee.
Doug Fletcher, Finance Committee member.
Pat Lenz, Finance Committee.
John Howard, Finance Committee.
Bill Meade, Finance Committee.
Dan Lindiger, Vice President.
And I'm Mac Cambeck, the President of our board. So we have an agenda. We just got through our welcome and introductions and my opening comments. Got it all out there in one fell swoop. I wanted the community to understand our task and purpose for the next several months. What are we doing and why are we doing it? The integrated financial plan overview, we're going to discuss all the components of it today. Available strategies. What are the strategies to get us through a 5-year plan? And somewhere along the line, what I didn't put on the agenda, Larry Santor, our assistant treasurer, has got some thoughts about how to proceed with funding the preserve renovation, so I promised him he could have some time to share his thoughts with us. And then if we have time, and that's only if we have time, I'm open to thoughts from our community members that are here today. This is not a decision-making body today. This is a thought-sharing body. But I really want to get us to nailing down this common operating picture of the challenges that we're trying to face. So let me start why all that's important. We have a mission. Saddlebrook HOA2 offers an outstanding active adult lifestyle to our homeowners and guests. By combining our majestic natural desert and mountain landscapes, we have nothing to do with that. With a broad variety of amenities and activities, well-maintained facilities, and quality services. And that's what this budget's about. It's making the last half of that mission statement a reality. So we have a vision statement to be the premier active adult community of choice in southern Arizona. Why do you do long-range planning? So you know where you're going and you know the pathways to get you to where you're trying to go. Now, I will acknowledge that there are members of our community that are offended by the word premier. And I acknowledge that, and I just want everybody to know that we do listen and we do hear. Some of us even read the social media stuff. I don't, but some of us do. And so if you take the word premier out of there, to be the active adult community of choice in southern Arizona, still provides me with the same azimuth on how we're going to drive this community to the future. So I just wanted to point out this is a challenge for the board to weigh when it does its next update to the strategic plan. So I built a little house. And I built this house because if we are to become the active adult community of choice in southern Arizona, we're going to need good plans, good governance, and effective fiscal strategies. So I wanted to build a model that was a visual representation of an outcome associated with ends, ways, and means. What's the end? I think I can get most residents to believe that we want a well-maintained, well-run, financially viable community. If we arrive there in 10 years, I think people will be very happy. How do you get there? You need strategies. What are those strategies built on? They got to be built on good plans. And so our roads aren't an accident. One of the things that I'm very proud of with Walter is his acumen associated with our roads. We do a road study every 3 years, and it influences the reserve study. So we just finished the 2024 road study, and we're going to move into the 2025 reserve study early next year. We're in the process of producing a facility master plan, and I couldn't help myself. I had to write it down. One of our residents attended the I Have a Dream meeting. That was a new name for the facility master plan meeting. And I wrote it down because there's a misconception about why you have a facility master plan. There's no way we can do everything that's being discussed in the facility master plan today. And we have a lot of work to do to communicate effectively to our residents why the facility master plan fits in to a strategy associated with taking us through the next decade. Of course, we have the strategic plan. And when we finish our work here on November 20th, the board's going to approve the 5-year budget, the 5-year plan with its associated 10-year forecast. So there's the ends and the ways and the means. And so if I've learned anything about being your president and serving on this board for the past 2 years, Nobody in this community comes with a PhD in HOA management. And so you have to rely on expert opinions, you got to rely on a lot of books, and you have to rely on people who have done this in the industry. Oh, and by the way, it just takes money. And it's the allocation of the resources. And I will tell you, they're not infinite, they're finite. And we have to be judicious in how we apply those resources. But you put all that together, and you have the opportunity to take a community from where it's at today to a future destination that's positive for all of us. So our task is simple. What are we doing? We're going to complete this 25 budget. We're going to complete the 5-year budget plan and the 10-year projection. And why are we doing that? Because somebody's got to identify all the funding requirements for the years 25 through 29, and we've got to build strategy to satisfy those requirements. And it is my desire to bring the residents along with us to these discussions. There's only certain things that we have available. There's only certain tools in the toolkit. And I don't want them to be a surprise to anybody, and I want to put this out there for everybody to see. So transparency with a capital T is the word of the day for this budget development process. So we had a treasurer some years ago who articulated this integrated financial plan strategy to the community. I happened to be one of the residents sitting in the room, and it appealed to me because I got to understand the difference between the operating fund, the reserve fund, capital improvement fund. The CIF is always the most complex because Charlie doesn't understand why I put CIF on a slide. And so we're going to talk about all that here in a minute. But where does money come from? Money is those 3 pillars taking us to where we want to go. Comes from the POA, comes from the community improvement fee, special assessments, loans, and earned interest. And this community has watched all of this since transition. So this strategy that I'm talking about, when we're done, we got to dot the I's and cross the T's for the operating budget, for the reserve budget, and for the capital improvement fund. And I will admit, I think you all would admit, we haven't had to think real hard on capital improvement over the past several years. So let's get to it. All I have to do is push the right button. I want to talk first about the operating fund. I want to talk about our experience. And I want to talk about future projections and how we got to those future projections. And then we'll start answering questions. So this takes us from transition all the way out to 2034. And I'm not smart enough to have a laser pointer. But you can see from 2018 to 2019, we increased 0.4% in the operating fund. 2020 COVID hit and we shut restaurants and closed buildings, and the operating fund decreased by a whopping 4.3%. And then in 2021, we enjoyed 9.7% growth in the operating fund, to be followed up by 2022 with growth of 14.83%. In 2023, 6.1%. So last year, the staff, the finance committee, and the board produced a 5-year plan that never got approved, but there were assumptions made in it. And so for the years 25 to 29, the blue marks reflect the assumptions that you all made in last year's budget. And beyond 29, that shows a 3% growth in the operating fund. Very modest, and certainly below the experience that we've had in the last several years. So my first question that we need to answer, how do we fund the operating fund? This is where you all get to play along now. Thanks. How do we fund it?
4 areas: dues, interest earned, assessments, and fees from amenities. Maybe more, but those are the main ones.
So POA.
Yep.
What was the second one?
Interest earned, small. But
Earned interest.
earned interest, special assessments, board approved or otherwise, assessments.
Okay, can you give me an example of a special assessment for the operating fund?
No, not off the top of my head. And the Western is fees. Fees from amenities.
What was the last one?
Fees from amenities. Sales, golf revenue, restaurant revenue, fitness revenue, theater revenue, etc.
I hadn't thought of a special assessment for trying to figure out how that works.
Yeah, don't go there. It's a source.
But I'll write it down. Anybody challenge this? Anybody add?
Yeah, when you look at HOA best practices, you try not to do any special assessments. If you do them, they're typically for reserves, not for operating budgets. You are in deep trouble if you're using them for the operating fund. I don't think there's anything illegal about doing it, but it is not even close to best practices.
Can I write not preferred?
Right. CIF has been tapped a little bit in the past.
What's that?
CIF has been tapped a little bit in the past. Shouldn't
Not
be.
for the operating fund.
Yeah.
I think you'll find it has.
We're going to get to the CIF, but this is why we're having this roundtable discussion, so we can try to get all these disparate views and opinions lined up. That's what I've never been through a process like this over our budget process, and it dawned on me that we could all probably benefit from centering ourselves and understanding what the main line is in this endeavor we're on.
So the other ones you get Verizon, you get fees from Verizon, you get fees from Verizon, you get fees from
Comcast.
Get fees from the architectural committee, credit card fees,
Late fees.
yeah, late fees, patrol fees comes in, so miscellaneous fees. ALC, that's yeah, architectural fees.
So there's a whole list of fees we need to lay out.
Yeah, there's more to that too.
But
That's my
so we'll develop this further in putting our document together for our members. Anything else we want to add?
Just rent, when we rent facilities. Well, that's in.
It's it's actually fitness or lifestyle fees. I think that's in lifestyle fees, so it's amenities.
So we generate through the amenities. We getting pretty close to having this one nailed? So what does the operating fund pay for? Well, what's the broad buckets that the operating? I'm sorry?
Yeah, wages and benefits, your day-to-day operations of facility maintenance, custodial,
Okay.
all of
I'm
common area.
I'm a slow writer. Wages, benefits.
G&A, general admin, common area.
Tell everybody what general admin means.
It's everything that happens in the office across from here.
It's a combination of IT, marketing, and front office, admin, HR. Yeah,
So support backbone.
correct.
What was the next one?
Common area.
Facility.
IT. Just G&A.
Facilities part of general admin.
No, facilities separate.
IT is part of general.
Amenities, golf,
Subsidies?
subsidies,
So subsidies for all 5 of them.
all the amenities.
Patrol's another one.
Road repairs as opposed to road reconstruction. Roads.
Yeah, it's in facilities.
Yeah, it's under common areas is where the roads and pothole and crack seal go under the common areas.
Road maintenance, I guess. Is that one?
Yeah, same thing, that's in the facilities, or
Common area.
Capital improvements that are deemed to be for operations.
So that would be some leases, right? And
So capital leases?
Well, capital improvements, not just leases, all capital improvements that are capital funds.
So take a microphone, Mark, and let all the people at home know what you're talking about.
So capital is split into 2 pieces. It has been for years. You have capital improvement funds, CIF funds. Those pay for things that are deemed to be improvements that the residents would enjoy. You take the other capital expenses, which are new things we don't own, but are deemed to be simply a benefit for operations, and those get paid out of operations. So capital improvements for operations are paid out of the operating fund.
You want me to write down capital leases too, you're just lumping it in there?
No, capital leases is separate. It's operating leases.
You good, Walter?
that's good. I mean, it's a broad brush. We don't want to get into all the details, but that covers the majority of it.
Campbell?
Yeah.
Terry? Great. So let me talk a little bit, oh, before I move. Did I go the wrong way?
Yes. There you go.
Before I move on, are there any additional questions that we should ask and answer about the operating fund for the uninitiated? I'm doing pretty good then. Okay, let's go to the reserve fund. I want to show you the experience that we've had, 2018 through 2023, that says 24, where we're currently at, and then where we're going in the future. Predicated on this document. This is the reserve study. This is the guide that lets us have a start point for how we're going to look at maintaining the property of the corporation. So this is the document that we update every 3 years to be able to do this work. I got me okay. So it's interesting when you study where we've been and how we're trying to negotiate where we're going. 2018 to 2023. You see this big line here? That's generally accepted accounting principles at work. Because I didn't get it until Terry took me to school. 50% of the money that was paid to Desert Reflections was put into 2023 because we opened 9 holes in October. The other 50% was put in 2024. So we all know we just paid off the loan, some $4.2 million. And why is 2023 like this and 2024 like that? Generally accepted accounting principles, or as my good friend Larry would say, GAAP. And so over that 6-year period, our community invested $15.5 million in funds. And obviously you can see it was pretty small until we got to 23, 24. And so here's where we're at. Now, Mark's doing a lot of great work. This is getting awfully close to the number you sent us. We're getting awfully close to the 4 million line. But the next 6 years, 24 through 29, the bill is $35.4 million. Now that's obviously an approximation because we know we're going to get a new reserve study here next year, and I'll talk about that in a minute. When you look at the 10-year look, getting us from 25 to 34, the reserve requirement is $49.1 million. Nothing new about these numbers. These numbers didn't change from January. They're the same numbers. But I thought it would be instructive to lay it out this way so people could see, so our residents could see. Our community is getting older. Bills are coming due. And this is what we're up against. Now, once we get on the other side, and obviously everybody in this room knows, this is the preserve golf course renovation, currently sitting at 29. And once we get on the other side of it, life is different. And the next 10 years beyond that will eerily similar. And so it's important to have this long-term view in your head to realize this is now the problem we're solving for. So, because I'm in good with somebody that keeps track of all this stuff, we've had 3 reserve studies, 2016, 2019, 2022. This reserve study, back in the Bill Einecker days, had no golf course in it. This was the first time in 2019, and if you recall, and I'm reviewing history here, this is when the board put a 5-year plan together and went to a 15, 10, 5, I think 3-3, a dues increase model, because this was their wake-up call. And that 2019 reserve study for this period reflected a $32.2 million requirement. In 2022, that same mission set, if you will, that same set of requirements, now have $43.6 million. Any guesses on what's going to happen in 25? So, Denise, are you back there? Denise Anthony? Oh, she's not sharing? Well, she made a very, I thought, spectacular comment this morning in the reading. And she talked about, we were talking about the facility master plan, but she said, you know, we really have to find a way to do something for everybody. And that's precisely what investment in the reserve fund does. And so I'm going to walk through very quickly the 6 buckets in the reserve fund to talk about how we're serving everybody in the community and meeting all the requirements. In Mountain View, I wrote this, I gotta remember the notes I wrote. Mountain View opened up in 1998. The clubhouse, the arts and crafts center, the swimming pool, the Mesquite building, all opened in 98. And so this chart lays out the requirements. You can see there's a couple big years and then some little years. But what are you doing at Mountain View, in the Mountain View bucket in the reserve fund? Because typically the only thing residents here ever hear about is golf. I think it's important that we educate the community that we're serving the entire community and maintaining all of the common property of the corporation. So things here, the IT backbone that everything works on. I never knew we had so many switches in my life until they've been replaced this year. Things like towel and carpet replacement. This building was renovated 11 years ago. And I told you 98 it opened. The restrooms have never been renovated. So this place is 26 years old. So
Matt, can I add a little bit about Mountain View?
Yes, sir.
When you look at the reserve, Mountain View includes the Mesquite building, the admin building, arts and crafts, and the Mountain View clubhouse. So I believe that covers all of those facilities in Mountain View.
And the pool, and the tennis court.
And the tennis courts,
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
I just want to make sure that people didn't think that was just the Mountain View clubhouse.
Well,
it's the whole compound.
Thank you for clarifying that. It is the entire complex. It's all the common property here that all came together in 98. And so tennis courts, as you know, we rebuilt 2 of those, and we got more to rebuild. The pools, Campbell, I got it. I went over to the pool. I'm embarrassed. We should never have a black pool deck. That should never be. And obviously, we're going to fix that. Meeting room and tables and chairs. Annie Peeker's back there. I know Annie walked in. The other day, I got a letter from a young lady that's been here 25 years. Her canasta group play cards in meeting room 1 at the preserve. And she drew my attention to the problems we had with tables and the chairs. And I went into classroom 2 or meeting room 2, and Annie was in there playing cards with her friends. And the difference on the chair that Annie was sitting on in 2 versus the chairs over in 1 were significantly different. And so Walter could give you the whole sad story of how meeting room 1 got to be the home of the cast-off furniture, mismatched and all that stuff. Bottom line is, I get it, we get it, is that there's a lot of things around here we take for granted. But how old are you if you've been here for 25 years? You want your butt to sit in a chair that's comfortable. And she was upset about the wobbly tables, and I have to give it to Walter and Bill, and the maintenance staff. They went up there and cleaned them up, and I got a note from Annie that said, thank you for just tightening up the table, so well done. So anyway, this is what we do when we talk about tables and chairs, and we talk about restrooms. We talk about maintaining all the common property.
And one other thing, kitchen equipment.
Yes, that would be in there. Yes.
Big bucks.
Yeah. Thank you. Trust me, I'm doing highlight stuff. You're going to find out there's gaps, and you're free to speak up. That's why you're here. But I think we're starting to get an understanding about what these actions mean for our residents. So Desert View, let me get to my Desert View page. In 2005, so Desert View is 19 years old. They called it the Desert View Clubhouse and Sports Complex. Everything down there is part of that. So that's the pool, and that's the tennis courts, that's the theater, all that. What are you buying when you invest in Desert View? Well, we got the same pool decks and furniture issues. We got exercise equipment. Obviously, we have our largest fitness center down there. It gets used quite aggressively. Equipment has to be upgraded from time to time. The theater,
good job 2 years ago on the theater, put new carpet in, put new upholstery on the chairs. The curtains are disintegrating. They're literally rotting. And why wouldn't they? They're 19 years old, been hanging there for 19 years old. Restrooms. I want to tell you a funny story about restrooms. Patty and I attend church at the community church along with the Linnegers down here. And Darby Baker is one slick lady. Because you know what she's done? She sicks the old ladies on me about toilets in the women's room. They don't like them low toilets. They want the grown-up, the kind of toilets we all put in our houses. And so Darby's turned them loose on me. So when I show up on Sunday, you know what I do? What are you doing about the toilets? Welcome to my life. So there you go. That's what we do at Desert. Preserve 2006. It came online a year later. So the Preserve Clubhouse and the complex, all the same stuff, pool, tennis courts, golf course, all that stuff. What are we buying? Well, you got to paint the place every once in a while. It's in need of that. Same thing about the renovating restrooms. Furnishings, I just gave you a little speech on that. Pool decks and finishes, up there they need shade. The topic of the day with our pools in the preserve is we need shade. And of course we do have an exercise room there, and we have the same obligation to keep that equipment up to date. The property site, I've always loved this one because I never knew what property site meant. But we got a lot of drainage through this community. It's where the flash floods come and we get the water off the community, quite frankly, into the golf courses. And it runs out. And what we've discovered over the years is that you've got to maintain this stuff. And this common area maintenance program we've uncovered some stuff that needs attention. And so this is just what's in the reserve study today. This doesn't include all the stuff that we're uncovering. We've got old work vehicles. We had a management meeting. Chuck, Larry, and I met with Walter Gray on Friday last week. We had a conversation about this, trying to get our hands around the entire fleet of vehicles the corporation owns. It'd be nice to know just how many vehicles we truly own, how old they are, and what condition they're in. That helps when it comes to budget time, and all of us are trying to figure out, what do you mean we need more trucks for this or that? And so we're trying to get our hands around the global picture here so we can make intelligent decisions in this budget process. Everywhere I go, people are concerned. Do we have quality plans for the roads? Mill and repave. Walter, could you tell everybody what that means?
So typically a mill and repave for a road is where you actually take like about 2 inches of the asphalt off. You take the asphalt down to the base, to the dirt. And then you come back, after you compact and smooth it out, then you come back and repave it. So that's typically what we do. We typically don't go digging into the dirt because most of the time that's still pretty stable. So mill and repave is taking off 2 to 3 inches of asphalt and then putting new asphalt back down.
And chip and seal?
Chip seal, there's different things that we do here. Every 5 years we do a seal coat. So every 5 years we come through and put some oil back on the roads that make the roads last longer. And some of the roads, and we'll do this with Clubhouse probably next year, is we'll chip seal it, where we actually not only put oil down, we'll put little pieces of gravel that are held together with a binding course, and it actually becomes a wearing course for your tires, and it resurfaces the road. You can get another 7 to 10 years out of the road if you do that without having to do major work on it. So there's mill and repave, there's chip seal, and then there's every 5 years we do the seal coat.
Also, I think it's important to point out that we have 45 miles of road, so that's quite a significant amount to have to do.
And so there it is, 10 years worth of effort as we know it today.
You can also add the work that needs to be done on the walls. We've got miles.
I'm sorry, sir, you got to talk into a mic so so the folks at home know what you're saying.
We've got miles of walls that need to be repainted, in some cases have the stucco repaired on them, and occasionally rebuilt altogether.
Yeah, and we fund that in the reserve fund.
Okay, yeah, that's in a different fund than the road fund. Just to add to the road, just a little bit broader look at roads. Just like facilities, these roads are getting to 20, we've actually stretched some of these out to 30-year-old roads. Their life expectancy is only 20 to 25. But because of our aggressive maintenance on them, we've actually stretched out these roads quite a long time past their lifetime. So what we're seeing is just a typical process. A lot of these roads are now reaching their 25, 30-year mark, and we actually have to mill and pave. Up to this point, you've been getting off with just the maintenance cost of seal coat. You know, so the first 20 years, it's all just seal coat. But now we're to the point where we have to actually mill and pave, and it's a lot more expensive than the seal coat.
I think, Walter, you had mentioned in past days that mill and repave is somewhere between $1 million, $1.5 million per mile. Is that correct?
That's correct. About $1 million per mile is what we got out of Mountain View Boulevard. It was about $1 million a mile.
Right. So to Terry's point, when you got 44 miles, obviously you don't want to do it all at once, hopefully, but that's the eventuality of 30-year life on roads that can go to 35, which is a big deal. All right, kick that horse.
Yeah, it's good news. I will point out to this, Walter, I'm going to let you have this one. This is that softball I told you about. The road study was just completed. For this 10-year period, it added how much to our cost?
I believe it's about $4 million to the cost from the last time we did the last study.
And so it's the reality of what we face. Nothing stays static.
Walter, when you say that, let me just make sure I understand, because I believe the number, but that's over a 30-year horizon, which is what the road study is looking at. Is that correct?
The road study does cover a 30-year. We try to match it up with the reserve study. We do 30 years with road study also.
Okay, so when you say it's $4 million more, that's $4 million spread over 30 years?
Rhett, is it 10 years?
I think it's the 10-year, right, Rhett? Yeah. It's the 10-year look that's $4 million more.
Okay, so you're backing that down even into a 10-year window.
Yeah.
And you're saying that in 10 years, you got $400,000 a year extra that we didn't have the day before we had that road study.
That's correct, yeah.
Cool.
Those are updated numbers.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be reflected in the next reserve study. And so Rhett sits on Walter's roads, you call it a committee?
Just
advisory group?
Just, yeah, action group, task force.
Yeah. And so I get my intel from many directions.
I think one thing to remember regarding roads is how many more miles of road we have added in the last 5 years. Unit 45, Unit 44, Overlook. That's a lot of new roads. And yes, you're only, except for small occasions there, doing the normal maintenance on it. But that's added to what we were doing before. So if Robeson turns over Unit 45, that becomes part of our operating expense to do the crack seal and that. That isn't something you can just ignore. It has to happen.
But I will point out that all of those roads in 44A, 44B, and 45 North, that's what I call it, they're all in Walter's road study that was done. So they're all in the reserves. But yes, Pat's right, it does add to the cost.
Okay, we kick roads good. We're going to move on. Favorite subject of golf? Obviously, 29. That's the number we have. That shows about 10 million. And you can see our cost the rest of the decade. This is the long pole in the tent, right? This is the challenge for the community. Obviously, that's the majority of the money. The rest of this is replacing maintenance equipment. So across that 10 years, that's how you get to the 49.1, with 2029 being the problem set. So we got to figure out how the community wants to go from here to here. That's our challenge. We've got to get everybody on the other side of 29. And where the reality we'll be playing with will be much different. So, question number 3. How does the corporation fund the reserve fund? No, we'll go a little longer. We'll answer this question.
Percentage
The
of the
POA.
POA dues. It's determined every year by the board, by the budget.
So this year, Campbell would tell you we had a 70-30 split. 70% of the POA went into the reserve, our operating account, 30% went into the reserve account. What else?
CIF.
Yes.
Yeah. The board decides
Capital.
every year a percentage of the capital improvement fund is allowed to be transferred to the reserve. It's decided every year. So this year it's 50%. Next year be whatever. But
Okay, you said community improvement fee, right?
yes, community improvement fee. That's correct.
Yeah. So every year, in part of the boards, one of the questions I wasn't smart enough to ask, somebody's got to remind me, assumptions. Obviously, in any planning process, assumptions are a part of it, and I didn't ask them the question. Residents at home should understand the assumptions that we have to work with. But in this case here, the community improvement fee, every year the board allocates, and I'm going to show you a chart on that when we get to that part of the deal. But it does go in here. Besides Bill's bake sale.
Special assessments.
Interest earned.
Yep.
I'll add one more. Let's do the pickleball situation, donations.
Well, that's not a funding mechanism for meeting reserve obligations within the corporation.
One of the original discussions, excuse my voice, that was part of creating the CIF fund was that when you buy new things from the CIF, whether it's a building, it's a car, it's a truck, a piece of equipment, that now has to be covered in the reserve. And so you're really seeding a bit of that. We should never have intended that 25 or 50% of the CIF was there to take care of the reserve. That was never the intention when that was passed. Necessity has made us do other things, though.
Yeah. Would you hold on to that thought? We're going to get to CIF in a little bit, because the history of the community improvement fee and what the board has done over the years is a discussion point that we need to have. But right now I'm looking for, how does the corporation fund the reserve fund? Loan. The loan? Yeah. Didn't we use a loan? Yeah. So
Debt.
Debt.
And obviously an assessment. I don't think you have it written down yet, do you?
Yeah. Basically, it's the same pot of money that we use for the operating, except for the community improvement fee.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically our source of funds for just about everything.
Right. Yeah.
I've never heard of an HOA using debt for the operating budget.
Anybody want to add anything else? So, I do not want to lose Larry's thought. So, I don't want to delve into this because it's not the purpose of this meeting. So long before pickleball was a recognized amenity of the corporation, they basically did it on their own. And they've just about got enough money to get it all done. We turned it into an amenity and we put some money in the pot and we put this huge asset on our, where do you put the huge asset on? The balance sheet. We put this big asset, this $1-point-something million asset, and we invested $300,000 of the corporation's money in it. So it was kind of a win-win for the corporation.
We also put the fences and other parts of it onto the reserve schedule.
That's correct. Well, it's now an amenity. So we have a corporate obligation to maintain it, like all the other common property. But back in the raising money days, it was not a corporate property. It became built because of the efforts of a group of people that made it happen.
I believe Cornhole is also in a similar situation where the people involved in it are contributing a significant amount of money in addition to the money that the HOA is going to put in.
Okay, I got 1:52. It's time for an underwear adjustment period. We'll start at 2 o'clock.